Okay, so we're looking at the eaves detail on a timber frame wall. Alright, so timber frame wall, you need to take note of various components in this now. Alright, so they're a little bit different now than what what we're used to with the block wall. Alright, so I'm going to start off at the top of the stud wall itself. Alright, so might not be the most ideal place to start, but at least it gives us a starting point. Alright, so we have two pieces of timber at the top of a stud wall. Alright, so we're called the head plate and the top rail. Alright, they're both the same size, so they're both 200 by 50 mil. Alright, so that's what we're going to start off with. We're going to start off by measuring 20 mil. Right, so remember it's scale 1 is to 10, and I'm going to come down 5, and I'm going to come down a second 5, because I'm going to mark out 2 of them at once. Roughly starting halfway down the page. Alright, roughly. So again, all I'm using ruler and a pencil. Alright, so now I'm going to just join the diagonals here, just to put in my timber end grain symbol. Alright, so that was 20 millimeters there, that's 5 and that's 5. Alright, it looks a little bit distorted because of the angle of my iPad. Alright, so that's your head plate. Then your head plate and your head rail. Okay, so then this stud wall is going to come down. Alright, and we're just going to bring it down to the bottom of the page. Okay, and then what we'll put in then is our quilted insulation into this. Alright, so that's our timber frame wall, just part of it, right? So just the top of it. So you're just going to have to kind of run along with me for now until we get a little bit more drawn. Okay, so that was just the 20 millimeters wide. So the same with for your uprights, and then your insulation then put into it. Okay. So then what we'll put on next is we'll actually put on our rafter. Okay, so we put on our rafter, and our rafter is the same, right? So it's 200 by 50. Okay, so I'm just going to put it on here at just a random angle. Alright, the only thing I'm looking for here is that it sits right on the corner of that head plate. Okay, so now it's 20 mil wide. So I'm just going to measure 20 twice just to make sure my line stays parallel. And there we have a rafter put in so far. Okay, so now there's quilted insulation. That obviously that has to be finished off at an end. Alright, but we don't know where the end is just for now. Okay, so we're just going to have to run along with what we have for the time being. Okay, so we're going to work a little bit more on extending out the timber frame wall itself, and then we have our ceiling joists as well. Okay, so I'm going to extend out that line there. Alright, and then we have our ceiling joist then, which should be 200 as well. Alright, so I'm going to measure up 200 there, and do the same over here. So 20 mil, 1 is to 10, and that gets me my ceiling joist put in. Alright, so that's quite important. So in the ceiling joist then we could put in more quilted insulation inside of this. And work right the way across. Alright, we're going to just stop off here. No point going any further really. Okay, so that's the ceiling joist. So there's insulation running that. What we'll look at doing now is we'll look at adding in just little pieces onto this wall here. Okay, so what we'd have is we have a vapor check, and we have 18 mil sheeting material. So we're just going to add in 18 mil. So I'm just going to add in 2 mil here. Right, so that's for my sheeting material, and my vapor check. I'll put that in if I had yellow. Not the yellow, orange. So I don't know where the yellow is. So we have our vapor check there coming down. Right, so then we have our sheeting material. Right, so it comes down there. Okay, then we have a 50 mil service cavity. So you do not want to. Every service goes into this. Alright, so 50 mil. Just put in your two measurements if you're trying to keep your lines parallel from where you started. Will make a difference, right, to how you've drawn finishes up. And then we have 12 mil plasterboard. Alright, so 12 mil plasterboard. So just going to go in 1 millimeter there, and we'll bring that up to the top. Alright, all nice and light so far. Going across the top then, we have, okay, so we have battens to go across the top here. So still across the top we still have a service cavity, and we have an air tightness membrane as well. Okay, so the air tightness tape or membrane comes down here and runs right across the top of the roof. Over to there. Alright, and then we have our battens then. Right, so they are, if I could just find it here, they are 35 by 50. I think we'll just make them 50 by 50 just for handiness sake. So 50 by 50 to there. Alright, and then there should be 350 millimeters between it and the next one. Alright, so that's to go up there, and then we'll go 350 again to there, and do we get a fourth one in? Just about. A bit of a nuisance. Alright, so these are just timber battens put underneath. Right, so this is like a service cavity for the top. We have to put in our cross to signify that it's timber as well. Right, there is a lot of various parts in this. Alright, so don't get too bogged down on it. And then your plasterboard goes across, right across there as well. Okay, so it goes right the way across, and that would be what you'd skim onto then, and what you would plaster onto, or sorry, paint onto, excuse me, wrong term there. Alright, and then you would have a little bit of air tightness tape put in just along there as well. Okay, so now within this service cavity, and within the service cavity across the top, you have rigid insulation going right the way along through it. Sure, why not? When the space is there, fill it. Alright, so it'll add extra thermal properties to the wall, which is what you're looking for. Alright, so rigid insulation there. You'll have rigid insulation going across here as well. Alright, so that's kind of the inside of the wall, or the inside of the structure done. Alright, so that's fairly okay-ish so far, I hope. Then we're going to work out here on this side of the wall. So we have a 50mm wood fibre board put on the outside. So out 5mm and 5mm there. Okay, and then we just put on our wood fibre board symbols, a couple of lines at around 60 degrees, just fairly close together. Alright, so that's our wood fibre board on that side. Then we have a breather membrane which runs up the outside of that. Alright, so we talked about that when we talked about the structure of the wall. What else have we got now to do? We have a 50mm cavity. So we have a 50mm cavity, and then we have a row of blocks outside of that. So 50 and then 100. So just to keep them parallel again. So go 50 and 100. So we'll bring that right the way up to there, and we'll bring that up to there a little bit further, and bring that across. So the block would only go up that far. Then we put in our blocks then, so 22.5. Just, and a little bit of a gap of 1mm for cement that would be put in to get the blocks to join or to bond together. Alright, so now we have our wall coming up here, so the rafter rests on the corner of that and on the corner of that. Then we have a cavity closer. Alright, so we have a cavity closer, that's a 50 by 50 block put in here. And then you would have quilted insulation just put into that space there. Alright. This cavity closer is like a bit of rigid insulation put in there. Alright, so that's your wall structure then, and your ceiling structure. Alright, so that gets you so far. You could have, if this was a truss roof, you would have a joining plate on top or on this. Right, so it would be there. Just a plate that's nailed between that and that. If it was a truss roof, if it was a hand cut roof, it would be cut differently onto that. And then the only other thing that we're missing is 150mm of insulation just put into the attic. So second layer put in there. So if you got up into the attic and had a look, there should be an awful amount of insulation up there. Right, designed to keep the heat in and stop from escaping to the roof. Right, and that brings us up to the part where we need to look at this roof structure. Alright.